So what I'd like to do today is to talk about replacing the main rear suspension gaiter on Citroen DS's, I guess also SM's. Here's one I made earlier, ready to go on. You can see that this end here goes into the suspension cylinder. There's a sphere back there, suspension cylinder. This wide neck gets clamped over the end of the suspension cylinder, and this end here there's a ball bearing and a seat and a small suspension gaiter over that. I've already done a video about replacing that small suspension gaiter. But the large suspension gaiter, two reasons why you'd need to change that. The obvious one is that the rubber itself splits and leaks, most commonly around this part here, where, as you can see, it gets folded in and out as the pushrod goes up and down with the suspension. Mine on one side is the rubber starting to perish a little bit. There is a leak on it, but that's actually because the clamp at this end has come loose, but the rubber is starting to perish a little bit. The other reason is the pushrod itself, and particularly this end where the ball bearing sits. As the suspension pivots on that ball bearing, the ball bearing creates a lump, not a groove, it kind of wears down and it creates a lip. That's the word I'm looking for on that face there. And particularly when the suspension's been on really low and you go to raise the car up, you hear an almighty cracking sound as the ball bearing is forced over the lip that it's created on that seat there. That was the case on one of mine, which I'd done the video on. At the time I just cleaned up the face of that with a Dremel, and that worked okay. The boot on the other side, the little boot on the other side, had also perished. I'd done both sides, but I figured that if I was going to go and do this, I would get new main boots before the slightly perished one actually split. And as I'd got a cracking sound on one of these push rods, I figured it probably wouldn't be too long before the other one started to go. It didn't look too clever, didn't look like there'd been a lot of grease in there for a while. So I decided to get new push rods and new rear suspension boots. There's a lot of comment and debate about the quality of replacement rubber components. This isn't just a Citroen thing, or classic car thing. It seems to be replacement rubber components across the whole industry. So new cars with steering rack gaiters and so on, a lot of them not lasting more than a couple of years. Most Citroen DS suppliers list different levels of quality for their replacement boots. Obviously I don't know how long these ones are going to last, but these are the top quality ones that I could get. The boots happened to come from Citroen Andre. The push rods were from Citroen Classics. For reference, these were, I think, the top quality or A quality, and there's a maker's mark on this side, I don't know whether that will show on the camera there, of FLE. So, and certainly they feel good, good quality. So the first thing you're going to need to do is, let me put that to one side, is to get your suspension boot inside out, and that might well be the hardest part of all this, particularly with these ones which are quite thick rubber. I put mine on a radiator for a couple of hours and that seemed to help and got it on. You then need to push the boot over the end with the seat for the bearing on, so it's looking like that. A little bit of red, well, this is rubber grease, red rubber grease can help get that over. The other thing you'll see is that I've also put on, slipped over this end, a rubber collar, and that is to protect this boot. It sits on, let me just put it on there. Come on, there we go. So it sits on there to protect the rubber gaiter from the clamp. Now traditionally people would wrap a bit of thick material around that, a bit of denim or something. These little rubber rings I got from Citroen Classics, and they've got the added advantage of a flange, a lip running around the outside, which when this boot is then folded back over will help protect, I hope, the boot from the strapping. Now the strapping that you'd put on these is good old Ligarex. I think in lots of places that Citroen use Ligarex, there's easier fitments to put on, whether that's Jubilee clamps or cable ties, but this I think is perhaps the one area where you do need that very low profile Ligarex fitting in order to stop it catching on the boot and tearing it as it moves in and out. So I'm going to put a bit of Ligarex around this, and obviously for that you need your little Ligarex hooks, roll of Ligarex banding, Ligarex pliers, a pair of pliers can be useful as well, though not essential. The instructions for Ligarex show you wrapping this around whatever you're fitting it to 2 times in order to get it to get the right length, but these are a bit cumbersome to use, so I've just got a little flexible tape measure to measure this. I think the only other thing you could potentially use around here is a flat shoelace or something. That might work. Whether you can get it tight enough or not, I don't know, but I think that might be the only other variation. I've used some very low profile, effectively they're like metal stainless steel cable ties, and the clip that runs through those is quite low profile, but I think I'd still probably hesitate to use those on here. I've used them elsewhere on external parts, but perhaps not on this. First thing is to measure around this band, and that is coming out at, what's that? Let me get this the right way around. So that's coming out at 9. Not the best light. There we go. It's coming out at 9 centimeters. So the band's got to go around twice, so that's 18. You want a couple of centimeters where you fold it around the buckle, so at 20, and then probably about 5 or 6 centimeters at the end in order to get the pliers, Ligarex pliers, something to lever on. So we'll call that 26 centimeters. So we'll measure that out. What are we at here? So 26 centimeters on this would be, there we go, come on, that's 30, too much. And then that is 26 about there. Okay, so we've got 26 centimeters there, and Ligarex have got a handy, the slot, that slot there is handy slot for cutting. So we'll put that, can't see what I'm doing here. put the band through there. And that's our material cut off. Get that out of the way. Then we need to take a buckle and put this through the small slot at the top, a couple of centimeters, bend that over like that, and this is where I think it's useful to have a pair of pliers, so you can see that, just to nip that up tight. Squeeze that down. So that's that fitted on, and then you need to put this around your gaiter here, and you have it so the buckle is pointing down and towards you. So try and get that a bit more into the light. So that's it on there, and we wrap it around twice, coming through where you put it through the first time, putting the buckle on. Make sure it's around nice and even, and around again, back through, like that. Pull it tight as you can get it. Make sure it's not skewed going around. So you then have your buckle down like that, and this pointing, carrying it up through, pull it through straight like that. So that's how your buckle is supposed to look at that point. And then you take your Ligarex pliers and you hold the bottom arm, which is the one with the notch on it. That's your pliers here. That's the lower one. And there's two slots on the top face, and it's the longer, narrower one you put onto your band, and then slide it down a little bit onto the notch there, and you pull this through and then let go. You might need to do that more than once. So again, hold it by the bottom into the slot at the top, onto the buckle, close the pliers, it pulls it through, checking it's all still on straight at the top, and then as you let go, that should be it quite tight. You can bend that back down there. So that's the buckle and the band on there. It's not, I did this earlier and managed to do it a little bit too tight, and it actually pushed off down to one side. So that is all looking okay on here. And then you just need to get your cutters again and cut it in so it doesn't go past the end of the buckle. So get the cutters up to the top there. And there we are. And we've got a little tab left, which you can just push down onto the top of the buckle. Some people will make it a little bit longer and fold it under, but I think that risks pushing the buckle up a little bit too far. It's not sitting quite as flat as I'd want it. Give it a little tap down. It's looking okay. So that's our clamp all done. Feels nice and tight. Some people, when they initially put the buckle on, will put a lot longer piece through, with the idea that if you ever remove this, then you could slide the whole lot through and reuse the bit of banding. I think the bit of banding might be just, I think that might be a bit of it, not so much a false economy, but more of a hassle straightening it out and pulling it through and getting it nice and tight again. But that's on quite nicely. Happy with that. And then we got to put this gaiter back around the right way, which is easier said than done. Need a fair bit of force to get it bent back over. It's mainly the tube at the top. Well, that's one other thing I should point out actually before I go any further, is when you come to clamp this on, let's do it this way, you'll see, I hope, that there are two small holes, or a small hole going through the end of the push rod, and that's where the U-shaped clip goes through. One side of the clip goes through that hole, and the other side goes through the seat on the other side of the bearing, which holds this push rod in place. And your tube here, which is the low pressure return, there's that and nylon weight tube goes in here as the return. That needs to be pointing up that way with these facing there. Otherwise, if this is twisted around, then your hose is not going to be able to go in, and this isn't going to be able to align to get the U-shaped clip in. So make sure that that's on the right orientation. Okay, let's see if I can get this back around. There we go, almost. Can feel quite brutal doing this. Oops, bashing off things. Okay, there we go. So that's it back the right way around. Nice and solid, tight clamp. Where you position this, actually, that's another thing I should have mentioned. Where you position this, there's a couple of grooves, a series of grooves down the push rod, and you come almost halfway down, perhaps a little bit more. You can see there's a couple of the grooves still visible at the end there, which I think is fine. And that is it. I'll perhaps add a little bit of rubber grease around here just to protect it and hopefully keep the rubber supple as it goes in and out. But that is stage one of the fitting of the rear suspension boot. Next stage is putting it onto the car. Car on an axle stand, and we've got also get the camera down here. The pin and the small gator to come off, and then here the large gator. So we'll pull this small gator. I'll see if I can position you somewhere you can see that. Zoom out. Pin out. Good start. This is where all the fluid is going to come out. Let's get this return line out. Eventually. Oh. Bit of space. There we go. Right. The protective rubber ring. This was just a cable tie on this one this time. Let's get rid of that. Rubber ring off. Let's see if I can get this. Is this seal going to come out? Flood of LHM incoming. There we go. That's the return line out of the top of the boot. Let's see if I can get this off. See, remember this being a gigantic pain last time. Stabbing myself. Come on. There we go. The seat with the ball bearing out. Ow. Right. Come on. Ah. And as if by magic, one boot off. Let's get this ring. That's the I mentioned in an earlier video, the metal bands that like zip ties that can be used outside rather than Ligarex. That's one of them. This rubber protective gaiter here, the rubber protective ring rather for the gaiter is perishing. I've got new ones of those. And keep things tidy. And you can see on this one here, I hope, that the fabric to protect on this, and this one's actually got a zip tie on it, a plastic zip tie. Somebody's been in here with a zip tie, which is there we go, not great. There we are, never mind. I wonder if there's a maker's mark on these gaiters. I don't think there is. No, and I don't know whether you can see just about here where it's starting to perish, and across on the other side as well. That's almost split all the way through. So time for change. So we've got our new zoom out a bit, new pushrod to go on with gaiter. We've got a new seat for the bearing, and we've got a new large rubber protective ring for the large gaiter, and a new protective ring for the small gaiter. So time to get these fitted up. Get the ball bearing out of the old seat first of all. Bearing, new bearing seat filled with grease, and oops, the ball bearing. Just push that into there. Oh, that's nice and neat. Spin it around a bit. There we go. Pack the grease in around it. Round. Okay, so we have, bring this in a bit closer, the new seat with a bearing in it, the small gaiter on, holes lined up, oh, do it that way around, holes lined up there with the tube for the return line, protective bracket, rubber ring on this end, and the same on that end for the gaiter. Now it's just a matter of wangling them back into place, and cleaned up the pin to slide back in, keep the two bits together at the small end, and we'll get that done. Okay, we've got some light on proceedings. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so the pin holding the bearing seat in the end of pushrod is through over the small gaiter. I need to pop a little bit of Ligarex onto that, but that's connected up, and the large gaiter is onto the end of the suspension cylinder with its protective ring around it. I find the easiest way of getting that on is to actually fold the large end back, push it up to the gaiter, then flip it back over again, and that gets it on quite nicely. So where, other than a couple of bits of Ligarex, and I need to put the return pipe into the top. Up there. Hey Derek, that's it. So here we are, finally finished installed. Ligarex on the small gaiter behind the pin. Gaiter on, Ligarex there, and all sorted. Just time to lower the car, get the wheel back on, and call it a day.